Okay, so what's your full name?
Curtis Joseph Fuller,
Joseph. Very good. And how old are you?
22.
22. Very good. Okay, so we're talking about confirmation,
Mm-hmm.
and so the Anglican Diocese of San Joaquin requires a spiritual autobiography for confirmands. And not like as a test or anything, but just kind of as a way of you being able to kind of just think about your faith and background in a way that you can kind of communicate that to the bishop. And partly, Bishop Eric asking for it beforehand, I think, is to kind of facilitate his conversation because he wants to meet you and know
Mm-hmm.
you and all that. I think this just kind of helps him to kind of do that so that the meeting you can have is just a little bit more fruitful. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So let's see. The first question is, what is your faith background? Did you grow up in a Christian home environment, some other faith, or with no faith at all?
Yeah, so I grew up Baptist
Okay.
my whole life, actually.
Okay.
My parents were super involved in the church, and then they got divorced, but I went to two separate churches, one non-denominational, the other one was Baptist.
Okay.
So
What brand of Baptist do you know? Is it Southern American
American, I think,
Baptist?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. I took Old Testament from the American Baptist Theology School in Berkeley.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So how old were you when your parents got divorced?
Third grade, so 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so what was that like going to two different churches?
Interesting. You never felt like you had a home at any church. You wanted to fit in, but if you're only going there half the time with the kids, I mean, you don't really get the relationships that you could anywhere else going there every single week. So
Yeah. Yeah. And was there one that you really liked more than the other, or were they both?
Not until I got older. Not until I had slightly more understanding of what I was listening to and reading did I enjoy one more than the other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And which one was that?
I went to Mosaic for quite a few years.
Okay.
So I liked that one more. I think the theology was better. The other one was central. It was bigger. So you get, I think, well, the bigger the church, the less kind of relationships and the connection you can have with the people. So I like the smaller one better.
So smaller groups, so you get better connection and that, and so the theology at Mosaic was more, what would you say?
Well, I'd say more Christian-like, but it was more, you could say stronger. I think the bigger the church is, the easier it is to get watered down and more just generalized in your faith to bring people in, which isn't a bad thing. Bringing people in is super good, but I think you lose some of the strength when you do that.
That seeker focus, right? Yeah. And so both of your parents were obviously going to church. Were they like committed Christians, or were they feel like more cultural, or
I
maybe
don't
they're
know.
going to watch the video, so
Yeah.
we've got to be careful.
I really don't know, especially when I was younger. I don't really know. They would they'd go to church every week, and they would talk to me about it, and so we would have conversations, but not a lot. It seems, especially now, the older they're getting, the more cultural Christians they are, but I don't see them in closed doors. Like, I've been talking with my dad a lot recently, and he seems way more committed since I've gotten closer to him than he was when we had a different relationship when I was younger. So it's like the more I talk to them, the more I see their commitment, and the more I see like him behind closed doors and his actual strength and faith. So I think they're relatively committed, at least now. So, but
Everybody goes through those ebbs and flows and different seasons of life, don't they?
yeah.
And so you feel like now, as an adult, you're able to have some adult conversations about faith with them. That's great. That's a pretty great thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you begin your relationship with Jesus? Has it been ongoing since your baptism as an infant, or were you older?
Yeah, so I think it's a super hard question to answer.
Yes.
I like I said, grew up in a Christian home.
Yeah.
So I always said I was Christian. You know, I
Yeah.
feel like I have the moment like everyone else did, especially in like the Protestant family,
Yeah.
Baptist, non-denominational, where it's like you're 7 or 8. Oh yeah, you know, I know Jesus. I want to be with him.
Yeah.
So I kind of had that, and then I got baptized in middle school, and then you
So
know,
how old is that? Like 12?
yeah, 12. I think 12. And then, you know, poor theology when you're young.
Mm-hmm.
I went and I got baptized again 2 or 3 years later because I was like, I don't know if the first one was good enough. You
Yeah.
know, it was.
Yeah.
So I got baptized again.
Yeah.
Now knowing one baptism. So
Right. Right.
I looked at that and I was kind of disappointed in myself that I did it again. But I was like, I don't know if I was Christian the first time.
Right.
And so,
Right.
and then when I came to Anglicanism, I was thinking I know there's one baptism, but I'm like, I don't know if I was Christian even the second time I got baptized.
Right. Right.
So I grew up like hearing all the stories and saying I believed, but I don't really
Mm-hmm.
think I had a um, like I didn't want to pursue my faith. I didn't really act saved. I didn't do the good things. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
like engage with people, with myself, and in
Mm-hmm.
the spirit
Mm-hmm.
until probably 20.
Mm-hmm.
I went started going back to church, um, like right after I met my best friend Brandon,
Mm-hmm.
in September or October of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
I started going back to church, and then I came here,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's when I really started growing. And I think so. If I had to say when I actually became Christian was probably about 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
is when I actually started taking it seriously, like it was something to grow in and a way to live.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. And so, what about with Jesus in particular? Has there ever been like a moment where you felt like he was present with you, or you felt like his presence, or you felt like that presence in prayer, or as a child, or since 2022?
yeah, absolutely. All the time. I feel like every week when we come to church, do mass and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I feel him almost every week. There are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times in communion, the
Mm-hmm.
real presence. I since learning about that and believing that, I feel like you just get such an extra like feeling of him, and you
Mm-hmm.
can grow in that moment. Times of real like emotion that comes upon me when I feel that. Um, but yeah, in 2022, I was doing a lot of listening to Catholics and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started learning a lot more about the faith. I was thinking about becoming Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
A few disagreements with them, so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I came here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's what got me is the Catholicism, the beauty that they would talk about of their churches,
Mm-hmm.
seeing it in person, but also being able to just like recognize the truth all around and the tradition and how much that matters is something. I'm a big history guy, so
Mm-hmm.
listening to the history and seeing how much it was rooted from the beginning, even after Jesus' death and the
Mm-hmm.
early church fathers and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
really seeing Jesus and seeing the truth in them was something that really drew me in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's see. What impact has following Jesus had on your life? I think you kind of already started answering this question. What role has your faith played in your day-to-day activities, whether school, work, or social, recreational? So,
Yeah, so it when I started coming here, when I became a Christian in the way that I acted. So I would say when I
mm-hmm.
became a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
it changed my life completely.
Mm-hmm.
The I didn't really have a care when I would sin, when I would do bad things, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what. Like I would know that those are the wrong things growing
Mm-hmm.
up in a Christian home,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't really care if I went into like a poor situation.
Right.
I could find myself just doing worse and worse things
Yeah.
and easily falling into the temptation of things. So I was glad that I never put myself in those situations. And your occasion to sin was something that um, I didn't know was a sin for a
Mm-hmm.
long while, but I was able to stay away from it just
Mm-hmm.
because the way my parents raised me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, running away from sin, running away from the possibility of getting yourself into poor situations was something that happened to me a lot once I became Christian.
Okay.
Pursuing the faith, reading the Bible, praying and every day and stuff like that is something. Um, just developing that. Uh, I don't know what to call it. Tradition of
practice. Just
practice,
practice.
tradition of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
It centers you.
So praying for yourself, like during the day, during the week, like you're praying for yourself at work, or
For myself, for others, just everything.
that's so transformative, isn't it? Just like in day-to-day life, being able to pray for yourself, pray for other people.
Mm-hmm. Especially cleaning pools. I really enjoyed doing it then. I had some of the best views in all the city. You had there were some nice people that I was cleaning pools for. I could see the city, or I could see like the valley, and just seeing the beauty of that, and then acknowledging like how small you are just in this one city, much less the whole world or America itself. And so praying over the city when I could see the whole thing was super cool. But yeah, it really centers you and gives you a certain humility that I wish I could continue to hold. It's hard to keep.
It's got to be that daily practice, right? Like you can't just decide it and keep doing it, which it sounds like what you're talking about there. I like also what you said about not putting yourself in a bad situation, right? Like that's such an important thing, right? Like to kind of anticipate it. I'm gonna have temptation if I go to this place, or if I go with this group, or whatever it is, right? So just kind of anticipating that to me is like that next step, right? So just recognizing it's a bad thing is one thing, but then just saying, well, I need a little bit of protection, I need a little bit of help, that's good. This is a good one. What do you think confirmation is, and why is being confirmed, received, or reaffirming your faith something you want to do right now? We can do this one together if you're stumped. But what's your take on it?
So my idea, especially from what I learned in my non-denominational or Baptist background, is confirmation kind of seems like baptism for them. In the same way, so you profess your faith when you get baptized. Obviously, they don't agree with getting baptized as an infant. So you go there and you profess your faith. You tell it, it's like an open proclamation before baptism, and then the baptism is people physically seeing it. So in my mind, it's the profession. It's the thing you do as a, hey, I'm Christian. I'm telling the congregation, as a way for them to keep you accountable, as a way for you to come into your own. I know there's the sacrament of it is something that's super important, and it's a way of grounding yourself. Is the way that I would say it.
Yeah, I really like that because I really like kind of your description of kind of these classic ages, right? Like 7 or 8, you kind of realize, oh my goodness, I'm an individual. I've got my own choices, and so right, I need to make a decision to say things about myself or the world, and then there's that 12, 13 where it's like, okay, now yes, I'm going to be baptized, right? We're aware of our friends, and we're a little bit aware of maybe societal pressures, or we've got this real love of the Lord and desire, but all that kind of stuff works together, right, at a different kind of stage. And then we get into our 20s, and it's like, okay, now not only all of that, but I'm deciding where I'm going to go and who I'm going to hang out with, and right, what kind of a life I'm going to have. And then there's another point of decision there. I think you're right. I think confirmation is a lot of that. The infant baptism, leaves that time for development to say, yes, I'm making a decision. And, I'm going to reject Satan. I'm going to reject sin. Really important. A really important thing. And I think you're pointing out. I've talked to lots of people that have been baptized multiple times, and I think it really comes down to like you're saying, that desire for like a confirmation, and then what we offer in like reaffirmation, right? So people can do it. You can do that over and over again. You can confess publicly, and right, which I think is really important because it's a natural desire for people to say, like you're saying, your parents, right? You've seen them go through different stages, and so hopefully, God willing, you'll do the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
You'll come through some times you're like, oh, I need to recommit, I need to
Mm-hmm.
reestablish some better habits, and
Yeah, yeah. Especially in marriage, you see it a lot. A lot of people renewing
Mhm.
their vows and doing things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So in that, I was super excited about confirmation here.
Mhm.
Like I was saying, is like I don't know if I was Christian even the second time that I got baptized, and so knowing that there's one baptism, knowing you can't do it again, confirmation is a good way to
Yeah,
kind of have a similar experience. You obviously can't match what baptism is,
right.
um, and I'll never like, but I think confirmation is just as important. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a sacrament. Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? What do we really know at 8? What do we really know at
mm-hmm.
12? What did I know at 22?
Yeah, yeah.
I look back and I'm like, I'm not sure what my faith really was then, right? It's different now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what was that? Okay, so oh yeah, what does being an Anglican mean to you?
Yeah, this one is one that I thought quite a lot about.
Okay.
Um, to me, right now, it's the closest to the truth that I can find for like when I read the Bible and going through tradition of the early church, going through the time of Jesus and trying to come to today. I really enjoy when I come here. It's like I'm being transported into the past in a way where non-denoms and baptism wasn't really like that. You're staying in the modern day, and there's a certain like aspect to that that's nice, but being Anglican is the closest that I can get to Jesus in that way. Like when I was trying to become Catholic, or when I was learning about that, there was a real draw. It talks about in the Bible, especially to separate yourself from the world. And so when I feel actually separated, and when I'm in the congregation and things like that, it feels the most as it should be. It feels like I'm separated from the world, and so I'm living in the world, but I'm not of the world.
Mm.
So to me, Anglicanism is as close as I can get, and it's the most accurate out of the denominations that I've heard so far. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. We've got our problems, but I think that's a pretty good description of what we're trying to do, right? What
mm-hmm.
our goal is. Yeah. Um, do you believe the Nicene Creed, and why is it important?
I do believe the Nicene Creed, saying it every Sunday. The affirmation of it is,
Mm-hmm.
I think, is super important. Um, it's it's kind of like confirmation wrapped up. It
Mm-hmm.
tells you, it gives you the story of Jesus, the resurrection, all the essentials
Mm-hmm.
of salvation, baptism, and all these things that it
Mm-hmm.
talks about. So I think it's important to not only state your faith, but to be able to affirm it in with a group of people
Mm-hmm.
and saying it. So yeah, I think it's important in that sense, and being able in knowing it, being able to profess it to other people, it really tells them like what you believe.
Mm-hmm.
Asking Christians a lot, like, hey, when people say they're Christian, you have like Mormons and a lot of people like that will claim
Mm-hmm.
Christianity, but they have a problem with the creeds,
Yeah.
and so it's a way of centering your faith and seeing Christians a lot, because a lot of denominations, even if they don't know the Nicene Creed, if you were to tell it to them, then they're
Yeah.
like, I agree with every single one of these things. So it's like,
That's right.
okay.
That's right.
So it's a way of finding your community, even if you're not in your community of
Mm-hmm.
like Anglicanism and stuff. That we're all still one church who
Mm-hmm.
believes in the same essentials.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like that it's like a kind of a mini confirmation or reaffirmation of our
Mm-hmm.
confirmation. Maybe really the whole gathering together is, all the sacraments, right? Like we've got the holy water that's much like baptism, and we say the confession of sin like we do at baptism, and the affirmation and the creed and Holy Communion, obviously. All those parts are all wrapped up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very good. Anything else?
I
Anything
don't
else
think so.
that we should know?
No, no,
Okay.
I don't think so. I mean,
Thanks for your time.
absolutely.
I appreciate it.
I love doing it.
Yeah. Look forward to being a part of the next week and seeing the bishop. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.